says manage your audio.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Appreciate all your help.
Okay, no problem. See you. Good luck on the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. See you, Dan. Be in touch.
I can't hear anybody else.
Wait, no,
I can only hear Bill, yeah.
Bill is the only one speaking. We haven't started yet.
Wait, how do I turn on my video? Oh, here we go. How about that? There we go.
Perfect.
Thank you.
It's perfect. We can't see you.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
Mark, you sound very far away in the tunnel.
No, I'm right here. I'm just not,
No, I know, but it's hard to hear for you.
okay. We'll get to that. I'll be closer when I'm speaking in the meeting.
I hear everybody good. I mean, I hear Mark fine and, Lauren fine. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Sue. Hi, Sue.
Hi, everyone.
Wait, how do we know who's talking? Oh, that's Jeff.
Now you're able to mute all of them?
Yes. I'm just
So
waiting.
Jeff has video.
What happened to Zoom?
We're gonna try that for next time.
Zoom worked really great. I tried it out the first time.
We needed some more time to figure that out.
It was great.
I finally figured it out.
Jeff, here, watch. If I do this, you can see me.
Bob
right?
is on.
Watch, hold it.
Who is?
Bob Colbert.
Yes, I
is
see
logging
you
in.
now, Bill. Oh, my goodness.
We don't need Zoom.
I can see you.
I know. Let's not have that whole come. That's an
We're the only
offline.
ones with video?
You're the only brave
Oh,
one.
there's Adam. Okay, there's Adam.
Okay, it's
Oh,
7:01.
Adam's here. Okay, so.
Adam's here?
Okay, so where's Paul? Paul?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we're
Okay,
gonna
we're
ask
trying
him.
to see.
Is Vanu here?
If everybody can everybody hear me?
Yes, Paul.
I can hear you, Paul.
I can. I
Okay.
won't.
Is Vanu here? No.
Okay, Paul, let me just keep on. All right, Paul?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, everyone has been muted except for Paul. We're going to start the meeting.
Shouldn't we take a roll call just to make sure who's here?
Well, first you have to read.
I'm gonna read
No,
that.
For a work session, we don't do roll.
But just to confirm, we know who's on the call here, that we have a quorum, because we can't see anyone.
Okay,
So let's just unmute for that purpose, then we'll
All right.
mute.
but remember, Paul is number 5.
Paul is number 5.
Okay, so first you start with the Open Public Meetings Act, and then Omar, you do the roll call.
Okay, it's 7:01, we're gonna start the meeting. I'll start with the Open Public Meetings Act. Omar is going to do a roll call to confirm that we have a quorum and who's here, so that we can conduct business. And then we'll talk just a little bit about how we're gonna do this electronically. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, the notice requirements have been satisfied. The meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center, and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Notice of this meeting via Resolution R20-95 has been sent to the Record, Suburbanite, and Northern Valley Press, has been posted on the bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and municipal website. Lizette, can you call a roll, please,
Sure,
to confirm we have a quorum?
sure. Councilmember Dayton?
Here.
Councilmember Grossman?
Here.
Councilmember Menon? He's not here yet. Councilmember Michaels?
Here.
Councilmember O'Connor?
Here.
Councilmember Park?
Here.
Mayor Zinna?
Here.
Okay, so now everyone will be muted with the exception of Paul, who will do his presentation. So just bear with me. Okay,
All right, Paul?
Yes, I'm here.
So why don't you do, what we're going to do here is, we're going to do the 2020 budget review with you, and then we're going to unmute the council members, and then they'll be able to ask whatever questions they have, and then we'll go through that process.
and please select the raise your hand feature, so that way you could be called upon and ask your question.
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, great, thank you. to make sure that our estimates are somewhat in line with what we think we're going to collect to avoid any issues at the end of the year. But having said that, I think we're going to have to come back and just kind of revisit that once I get to the end of my brief presentation here, because things are changing daily, as you all know. And really what I mean by that is that, a couple things. First of all, we're looking at revenues and estimating numbers, and we really do that based off of historical data. But now we know that, we're also going to have some issues because, obviously, with the shutdown, construction code revenues are going to come in less. Municipal court is going to come in less. Interest earnings, we all know that those rates drop dramatically, so we're going to have certainly less of a realization on those specific revenues. You also collect some hotel tax, not a lot, but obviously that's going to go down as well. So looking at that, we did make some adjustments for those things already baked into the budget. But I know that the latest thing that came out just today is that the state of New Jersey has ordered a freeze on some of their programs, and one of the programs, or two of them really, is the homestead rebate money that we receive, and also, more importantly, state aid. Now, again, we don't know, there isn't really much guidance other than the fact that they froze the payments. I don't know, I'm going to have to assume that those payments, once government starts working again, that the delay is nothing more than a cash flow issue, and that they'll make us whole. I don't know the answer to that. Right now, the budget contemplates the same state aid that we could receive last year, which is what we were told. I mean, that was going to be the value that we were going to receive, so no change. Don't really know how that's going to affect it. Also, there is a delay or an option to delay your budget calendar, basically 1 month. We can circle back on that particular issue at the very end. A couple options there would be that we move forward if we can come to an agreement, go through the budget process where we introduce the budget. That'll give us a month to see what transpired, maybe more guidance from the state, and then we may have to amend the budget. We introduce it to next meeting, and the plan is to have a hearing and adopt in May. You can still have the hearing. We don't have to adopt if we think things are constantly moving. So there are lots of options on how to do that. I think that if we can all look at the budget, come up to an agreement that as of today, this is our best case, or based upon the facts that we have today, this is how we should proceed when we go through the budget process. So that's just a little bit of background on some of the issues here. And I'll get a little bit more specific into the budget and some of the concerns that I do see going forward. The budget that was prepared and sent to me, we did some minor modifications, which Susan sent out, I believe, to the entire governing body. Just redirecting some expenses, making sure we have enough money in for the unemployment, which I think could be higher this year than last year. We did back up some of the revenue line items that we anticipated. We made some slight adjustments to those as well, just knowing that, as I indicated to you before, some of those revenues are certainly not going to come in based upon the 19 actual numbers. So we did make some modifications to those particular items. Overall, and I think you all know overall where we are right now, the budget is only going up 1.4% in total. Compared to, just give you a little bit of a historical perspective, last year that increase was 2.8%, or up $800,000, 821. Now we're only going up $424,000. A couple reasons for that. The amount to be raised, which is of course the most important line item we have, that's up as of today 2% at $487,000. Last year we were up less than that. We only had I'm just looking for my notes for 1 second. So last year was less than, I think, 0.7% was the increase. So budget-wise, it's certainly not a large impact 2019, it was at a 10-year high. Last year was a 10-year high of 5.3 million. So now we went down to 5.1 million. So we had a decrease in our surplus of $195,000. It's really, and I'm looking at my historical data, it could be the only time we decreased in the last 10 years. We've always had slight increases in surplus. 2019, we did have that slight decrease. So we went from 5.4 now to 5.1 million. And this budget now contemplates the utilization of a little bit more than last year. So we went from the 50% utilization last year of the surplus to 2.6 million in budget, compared to now we're 2,690,000. So our utilization in 19 now went up to 52, almost 53% of the surplus balance, which just means it's going to create more pressure next year to be able to regenerate even the 5.1. So that is certainly an issue we need to talk about globally. And that's going to affect, of course, when we go forward. I always like to look at least 1 year forward, and I know we talk about this every time when we come to do our presentation. So we always have to, in our back of our minds, think about 2021 as well as the current year 2020. So right now, I know that utilization is higher than we normally have used, that I would prefer to use. I'd like to see back at the 50% number and make the adjustment for that. So that's something we certainly need to talk about as well. The major increases in your budget, and a couple of things that I just want to point out. Obviously, we have reduced in the 2020 budget, we did reduce the amount that we're anticipating on collections. We did reduce the amount that we're anticipating on construction code from last year. And the appropriation side is pretty flat, really not much of a change here. What we normally put in the budget is we normally pay down some ordinances prior to actually issuing debt on them. We've done it the past 3 years. We've averaged about, 80 grand and 234, and then last year we put $150,000 in our budget to just start to pay in advance, almost like an advance payment on future debt. This particular budget does not contemplate that. Something I would have preferred to have seen in the budget. It's not critical, but it's what we've done in the past. So, having said all of that, we're really looking at, right now, 2%. But again, I certainly would feel more comfortable, and I know it's not a popular issue, is to say, well, how do we, what do we do if we reduce the surplus utilization just back down to 50%? It would mean that we'd have to raise additional taxes. Because on the appropriation side, I think you have an adequate budget. Certainly nothing in there that I would think is extraordinary or excessive, perhaps is a better word. And I think the revenues, if anything, I think we may be a little bit aggressive on the revenues. So that kind of summarizes big picture-wise. But I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yes,
you want
let's
to
unmute
jump in?
Unmute Adam.
Well, Vanu just joined.
Vanu joined us.
Yes, I'm muting Adam.
Okay, so Adam, Councilman Michaels, you have the first hand up with a question.
Thank you, Paul, for putting this all together. Much appreciated. I guess the question that I really had was around the surplus. I know we mentioned we went from 5.1. Is there any statutory levels that it should be at in an absolute or a percentage term? So I know we went down, but are we really in trouble because we should be at $10 million of surplus? Or, yeah, we went down, but we really only need to be at $2 million of surplus? Do we know what that right level surplus is?
Well, I think, every community is different on the level of surplus, and it's really all a comfort zone. There is no statutory requirement as to how much you need to keep. So that, that answers that question. Policy decision really is, in my mind, is guided by the rating agencies. And what I mean by that is that in order to become a triple AAA community, you have to meet certain criteria, demographics, per household income, including they look at the financial statements and they look at your reserves. And as part of that process, I know that they like to see at a minimum 15%, typically 15 to 20% of your budget. So that's kind of where that's coming from.
As a surplus. So 20% of a $30 million budget is $6 million?
Yeah, so I mean, we're certainly a little bit above that number. We're closer to 20%, I believe, right?
Well, we're at 5 million, so we have a $30 million budget. If you're saying 20% of 30 million is 6 million?
Right, yeah, so we're a little bit on the upper side of that.
No, we're on the lower side. I thought we said we only have a $5 million surplus.
Correct, that's what you have, 5 million, yep.
So we're below the level. So I guess, again, the question that I have is...
You're right there, Councilman, because you're at roughly 17%, right? That's really where we are.
Okay, so, maybe not now, but I think one big area for the council to would love your expertise on is, again, what is that right level? I hear you saying that possibly to be at a AAA rated, they want 20%, which is about $6 million. Let's say we're actually slightly below. I guess the question is, if we became, AA rated, AA plus, whatever the next level down is, where is the right number? And again, I don't know if we're going to be able to make it for this cycle, but I would implore the council. I think that's a really important question for us to align on. Not what we've historically had, but what is the right number for our business? And I'd value Paul's opinion. I'd value, obviously, Susan's opinion, and learn from others as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. It really is. And, like I said, I mean, I'm using their guidelines, and it's clearly, they have got a range. But so we're in the range right now between that 15 and 20%. We're at 17%. So the $5 million, there's certainly nothing wrong, or I would not be alone by saying it's too low. My only goal is that I'm trying to look forward and say, okay, well, where do we think we're going to be at the end of next year? Because, you want to be able to, you're balancing your budget with half of that value right now. I mean, that would be a tremendous hole that we would have to fill if the surplus dropped another 400 or another 500,000, where then we'd have a $250,000 effect. But that's a good point. And we could actually come up with, and I've done it for other communities, we can come up with a policy. You guys could just...
I would love that.
Some balance policy, yeah.
That would be, and I'm happy to help you with that. Like that would be awesome for future councils. Where should we be? That's brilliant. Please, let's do that. Happy to do anything. Happy to roll up my sleeves with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, so Omar, could you please let the record reflect that Councilman Menon has joined us, and he has the floor next? Okay. Venu?
No, actually, I'm sorry. I clicked on the button by accident.
Okay, well, we know you're here for sure now.
Okay, so click back to put down your hand.
All right, who has
Okay.
any other, next question, next council member?
Maybe raise your hand.
You know what, just in
Otherwise-
case there's a technology problem, unmute all the council people, okay? I'm gonna go down the list. Okay, all the council members are unmuted. I'm gonna go down the list in the order that people join the call, just to ask if anyone's got a question in case their technology's not working properly. Councilwoman O'Connor, any questions so far?
No, I don't have any questions other than I actually don't see the raise your hand button on my computer. I see the stat all feature. I don't know how to raise my hand on
Okay,
this thing.
so that's why we anticipated that, unmuted everyone. I'm going down the list to make sure everyone's participating.
No.
Okay?
No, but I don't have any questions about the budget, but Lisette, if there's some button I'm missing, let me know.
Okay. Councilman Park, any questions for Paul? Councilman Park? No? Okay. Councilwoman Dayton?
Yes, can we answer Julie's question? I don't know how to raise my hand either. What does the button look like? And two, I do have questions for Paul.
I can answer what the button looks like.
Go ahead, Jeff, answer what the button looks like.
I can't answer all the budget. If you look at the right side of your screen, it should say participants 12. And there should be a list of participants. You see that?
Yes?
If you move the cursor down over your name, there should be something, a little circle, and if you put the cursor over it, should say raise hand. To the right of your name on that column.
It's asking me if I want to be a presenter. Is that what it is?
It actually should say raise hand when you move the cursor over it.
No, that's not working. All right, anyway,
Okay.
Mark, you're gonna have to pull the thing. So can I so for Paul, can I go back to Paul?
Go ahead, Lauren, ask your question.
Okay, so given the state of the world and that we know we're going to be incurring losses this year in terms of incoming revenue, where, consider other movements, going forward, no houses are being shown, businesses are closing, we're anticipating less business rent, possibly, hopefully not, but is that something that now should be considered in the surplus discussion? Should we be looking to have a more conservative surplus, so actually less pressure to regenerate for next year? So we should have an increase this.
Yeah, well, I think you're 100% right when you say that. A month ago we would have said, I think our surplus projections should be pretty positive. We can go through that forecasting model, which we do every year. When I develop next year's budget, I do that. I haven't done that yet because I didn't want to take the liberty of just doing something without getting direction. But certainly, yeah, and I think it's a reality issue and the problem is like everything else with this virus, there's so much uncertainty, and I can't really tell you, but I would say that, on a probable perspective, revenues are going to go down. Surplus is not going to be generated to the same level it was last year. I mean, I just can't see how we can wind up with the same generation or higher, considering all the things that are in effect. So, and that gets me back to my original discussion where I thought that, if I was going to make a change on the budget, I think your appropriations are fine. I think even your revenues, we could be more aggressive. But at a minimum, I would go back to the surplus utilization, and I would only use 50% or maybe less. If you do make the change to use less, which would be 50%, would mean $135,000 adjustment. And that's basically, about another $27 per home. That's what that would really amount to. So it would be somewhere around $125 increase to an average home compared to what we have now.
Should we be looking to bond less here and move it into surplus?
Well, two different things. The bonding side, it doesn't really matter. I mean, that's dealing with permanent debt down the road. The market's been crazy on that side as well. I think on the capital side and the capital projects that you're doing, obviously everything's going to get slowed down on that side as well. So if you mean on the capital side, listen, you could put it in your plan. You don't necessarily need to move as quickly as you might have in the past. But it's not going to have an impact. Not for many years will it have an impact on your operating budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Grossman, do you have a question?
Yeah, a couple of quick questions, Paul. By the way, thank you for everything you're doing.
You're welcome.
On the municipal sources side, I see that fines and court costs were increased to $150,000, but I have a funny feeling that last year's numbers are not going to be guiding. We're going to lose probably a full quarter, if not more, of police issuing tickets and some of the code enforcement. So I would be more comfortable taking that number down, personally.
Yeah, I think, again, when we look at these revenues, and we did make some adjustments to it, and I would think the three big areas where you're going to see, obviously, the material ones would be construction code. We know those numbers are not going to generate again, right? We know the court's not going to generate to the same levels again. So those are the two big ones. And, of course, interest on investments, which you can see we already took down dramatically, right?
Right, that one's down, but the other,
Right.
at least the line for the fines and court costs probably should be reduced further.
I agree. I think that could easily be reduced, because, you know, we realized 182,000 last year. I don't see that happening. But again, I don't know. Yeah, and so you can look at a couple of those, and even the construction code, you know, I mean, we realized last year 470, we're budgeting 425. I still think that's probably aggressive as well.
Right, especially as we're going into construction season.
Right, and I could, you know, you can, just like everybody else in our tri-state area, everything stopped, right? We're not making decisions, we're not, you know, doing big purchases, you know, and some people aren't working, so, yeah.
The other question I had was, I was trying to write down as you were talking, I just want to see on the $785,000 typical house, what will be the increase in the municipal side of the tax per house?
The way we have it right now, but the way we have it is $94.
94?
Yeah.
All right, that's not terrible. Okay, those were my two questions. Thank you.
Councilman Menon, do you have a question? Maybe he muted himself. No? No. Councilman Michaels, another question?
Nope, I'm all good.
Okay. Dan? No. Is
Vanu raised his hand again.
Vanu, you raise your hand?
Yeah, no questions.
Okay. Is Susan unmuted?
Yes, she's unmuted.
Susan, comments?
Hi. Well, I just wanted everybody to know that we are at the 2% cap, and I think what Paul was trying to convey is that the revenue is extremely aggressive, and the surplus, we're using more than we like to use, and if we make any changes to this budget, it would be to increase the tax levy, to not be as aggressive in the revenue, and I think that's what Paul's trying to say, and communicating also with the budget, we took it down so much that we're not going to regenerate surplus. So I just want everybody to keep that in mind. So Paul, can you add to that about what we may need to do as things become more clear to us?
Repeat that again, Susan.
Well, what I'm saying is, right now we are aggressively saving revenue. When I presented the budget to the auditors, we didn't make too many changes, and we tried to keep it at 2% cap. If we take down any of the revenues in this summary, what'll happen is taxes go up unless we anticipate more surplus. And additionally, as far as the budget appropriations go, we only went up like 400 and something thousand. So therefore, we're not going to be regenerating surplus like we did in the past. And I think what Paul was getting at before was that now's the time, if we're going to make any changes to increase the tax levy, we have to think about that within the next few days. It may have to be 2.3% or something to that effect. So, Paul, are you still there?
I am, and that's exactly what I was trying to express. That I think, you know, again, with these uncertainties, I would certainly feel more comfortable taking the surplus down to only a 50% utilization, and as the other councilman indicated, maybe taking a look at, the construction code and the municipal court, lowering those expectations on the budgeted revenues, and we have a tax increase instead of 2%, maybe we do 2.5%. Or even 3%, but that's going to be from the direction of the governing body as to where you want to be. Certainly, can this budget go the way it is? Absolutely. I just think that at the end of the day, we're just going to cause more problems, and the pain will be worse next year. So I'm always a proponent of trying to spread it out as best we can.
I just thought that was important for the governing body to know.
Now, Susan, one of the things I'm going to throw out there, what about on the expense side of the budget, in response to if we have declining revenues, how do we address the issue of where our expenses are and making some moves over there. I'm just throwing that out there and would like to hear what the council members have to say about that. Did Adam raise his hand?
Right now, what we did was we kept the budget pretty flat. Now, depending on where this goes, so we don't know where we're going to end up with expenses just yet. In fact, we may be spending more because of this coronavirus, and we don't know where, what's going to happen in the future for headcount, any of that stuff. We have no idea where we're going this year.
So Susan, let me ask a question, then Adam has his hand up first. What happens if we kept the budget as it is right now, and we hold off on executing on our spending in different areas, and wait and to see, if we're waiting the next 30, 45 days to see how things shake out, so we maintain our cash, for lack of a better explanation, in case things go south that we're not anticipating. I'm just putting that out there, and Adam has the first question.
Okay, so if we freeze spending, or we only spend on essential items, towards the end of the year, if we don't spend all the money that we appropriated, that's one way you regenerate surplus. But that, if we take a conservative approach to our spending, yes, that would help.
Okay. Adam?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Susan. I want to make sure that we can't be aggressive at this time. We know all the headwinds that we're going after. Just to call it out, because I think it does have a piece to it that I haven't heard yet, is we know our debt, we could refinance our debt cheaper. So I know that there's challenges now. The debt market is completely dried up. The hope and expectation is that 6 months from now, whatever that number is, it will open up. The rates are not going up anytime in my tenure on the council. So, I think there's just there's a balance. I'm not saying be aggressive, but there are some tailwinds from debt refinancing and rates. Our debt costs should be a lot lower going forward, I would assume.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead, Paul. You go.
Yeah, that is a good point. I think what's happening is that, we have our permanent debt, which is bonded. We cannot do an events refunding anymore. And I have to look at the rates there, but right now the market's absolutely sideways. Because we're seeing short-term notes where we were basically paying 1%. I had a client where they basically went to 3% because it's such a volatile period right now. But certainly going forward, we have notes that come due at the end of April. I believe it's April 24th. I have to hope at that point that the market kind of calms down. We have some stability. And the interest earnings on that side, we know that they dropped dramatically. So we were over 1%, and I had a client now said, well, we just adjusted it to, basically 0.3. But certainly something that we need to keep an eye on and look going forward. Because I believe, I think you were getting at, is that before this virus hit, the cost of borrowing money was extremely low.
Yeah, no, I mean, we really call for a good week and a half, Paul, right after you and I spoke, and we were golden, and then,
I had a client sell just after that period, and they did 10 years, over $10 million, and they basically got, I think 1.9%.
crazy.
It's insane, yeah. Who knows? I think we have to look at it, and clearly I think we should also focus on maybe developing a forecast, not forecast, but a policy for you guys to look at on surplus.
Lauren, you have a question?
I do. Are you suggesting we raise our tax rate for our residents?
That is not the policy decision for you guys, so I'm never going to spend your taxpayers' dollars. I'm just telling you that when you look at the situation we're in, and you look at the amount that we have in surplus and trying to get to the same spot of regenerating at the same levels, I would be less aggressive
have been very hesitant in this same year to add on additional tax burdens to some of our residents. And it would behoove us to try to be as gentle about our taxes as we can this year, because I think a lot of households, and we know they're calling in already, need help already with losing jobs and the restaurants and the businesses. So this is a time right here. Anyway, so with that being said, if the council says, okay, we're going to leave it at the 2%, so that we have, we leave it there, but know that down the road we may say, okay, let's only spend on essential spending in both our operating budget and our capital plan, depending upon what happens with our votes and how we roll with rolling our notes and studying the letters and all of that. So, with the authority, we can do that, but then you have to know next year we may take the head.
Well, Susan, to your point, I think Mahmood has his hand up next. Good, okay. So, I'm very concerned about raising taxes beyond the 2%, given everything that's going on. I'm putting out there that, we should consider keeping it at the 2%, cutting down, to our essential spending, which will ultimately, if we don't do the spending, result in an increase in our surplus, and 3 or 4 months of kind of tightening our belt will give us a better sense of where we are and give us an opportunity to plan for how we recover from this, in the next budget in 21.
That's a good plan, right, Paul? That's a good plan.
Fair enough. I agree. I think we ought to try to look at the 21 numbers and come up with some projected numbers for you too.
Okay. Jeff?
Paul's looking for direction from the governing body.
Okay.
To do a forecast.
We still have some questions from council members. Councilman Grossman, have your hand up there?
Yes, so I think obviously there's still a lot of unknowns out there from the state, and I think we should plan as a council, the meeting in April, similar meeting to this, to start looking hard at, in the budget, what types of things can we hold off spending on, where we have some net savings, because I agree with everybody. Our taxpayers are going to be hurting enough, and we need to take a hard look. We know some of the places where we might be able to do temporary furloughs perhaps, and those could be looked at, but I think that there's some of the items that we put into the budget that we can certainly hold off on at the time, and look at which some of our options for saving money would be. So I would like to have that as an agenda, and we know what more, which should be sometime next month.
Any other questions from council members on this topic?
Well, my one question is, the first meeting in April is actually next Thursday. Will that be too soon to look at that, or should we put that on for the April 21st agenda?
I doubt we'll have enough information from the state by then, but
So the next meeting is when?
The next meeting is next Thursday, April 2nd, and then April 21st.
So April 2nd is when we would have adopted, if not for this situation, right?
No, introduce.
Introduced. We would have introduced. And so, Paul,
If you want to.
So if the council chose to, they could introduce on April 2nd, and then wait for more information to come from the state, and we can still edit the budget before we adopt?
Correct, because the calendar, the way I have it, I'm looking at it, would be your introduction on April 2nd. You go through that whole process, and that just starts the ball rolling. Then the budget would get advertised, and we would plan for an adoption and a hearing night, which I have as May 5th. So what can happen at that point is that between your intro and your adoption, if we get different feedback and we want to make modifications to the budget, we can absolutely do an amendment to the budget prior to May 5th. there is, you do exactly what we talked about. We come up towards the May 5th date, and we're still not certain or happy about, adopting what we have. We have the hearing on May 5th, where we just don't adopt, and then you wait until a certain whatever point that is that you're comfortable, and then you just have an adoption at a subsequent meeting.
That kind of like that. So Jeff, you spoke last, so we'll go backwards. What do you think about that plan we introduced on April 2nd? We had the hearing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I heard the plan. I kind of like it, but I think more to what my question or my point that I was trying to get at is, even if we adopt the budget, doesn't necessitate that everything in that has to be spent. Correct. They'll look at, even if we do what was just suggested, we can still look at some of the items and say, okay, what are we going to hold off on spending, what are not our immediate needs, and we can delay it a few months and not spend it even if we adopt the budget.
That's correct.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, what can happen is that, you go through the process, you adopt the budget, and then 6 months down the road, you're looking at certain lines and you say, oh, we didn't need all of this money in these particular line items, we're not going to spend it. You can do a cancellation resolution, canceling that part of the appropriation, and it will drop immediately into surplus in the current year.
I would consider that as an option. I'd be interested in hearing what council members think of that.
So let's go down the list. Councilwoman O'Connor, what's your view of that plan?
That sounds good.
Councilman Black?
I agree.
Councilwoman Daly?
Well, if we do a budget next set, and we don't get anyone to take a bond, is that a possibility after adoption, given everything?
Well, what we're talking about is on April 24th, I believe, we have a note roll. We want to...
It's not today.
Okay, I was looking at it on a different clock. Yeah, so you have until the end of May at that point. And, we have to assume, again, I'm probably taking a leap here, but I think at the end of May, I would think that we're somewhere back on recovery road. And the bond markets and everything should be somewhat stabilized at that.
Okay.
I have to anticipate, I haven't really seen it yet, that it come out the final document, but I have to anticipate that any of these municipalities that are having issues selling or renewing their notes are going to receive help from the state at some point. Other banks were told to get active into it. And I do want to point out one other option here, which I have not seen ever done. But another municipality will be able to buy your note. So there is some flexibility here. Some of those municipalities have what I call a deferred school tax. They're raising the school taxes 6 months in advance. A few of them are out there, so they're sitting on a lot of cash. So I think we'll have options.
I'm comfortable with some kind of separation ordinance. As long as our board is making it very clear to all departments come May 5th that nothing goes forward without kind of letting us revisit it. I don't want DPW police and fire and the rest to start ordering big items without kind of us double checking that. Is that possible?
Well, yeah, so this is Mark speaking. Right, so we've already started talking about some areas where we're going to be conserving cash by making different moves already. And so all the topics of not ordering things and only focusing on essential services and products we need is what we're doing now and going forward. Councilman, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, actually, just I was curious on if we don't adopt, are there statutory dates by which we must adopt?
Yeah, it would have been well scheduled to do it under the statutory guidelines. but that was all pushed out of 1 month. And quite frankly, they're really, even if the statutory deadlines or guidelines are not met, I have not seen any ramifications on that. It used to be part of the best practice calculation, which was what they utilized, what they determined how much state aid we get and then we allotted.
Okay, and then,
But those critical components went away as part of that calculation. So you have flexibility.
okay, all right, so, and then, I guess, one other question, I don't know if, Adam, Councilman Michaels, had asked, but, is there any such thing as, selling bonds to private parties, so for example, individuals, within the community?
Yeah, well, sometimes what happens is that, if you're going to sell, I had some clients that are selling less than $1 million, and we'll do private placements. And so the banks, and what we basically do is we'll go outside, we'll contact several banks, USA will do that.
Not necessarily through an institution, not through a bank, but directly to individuals. If there's an individual who wants to buy, a bond.
Right. I have not seen that in my tenure of doing this. I don't think there's a prohibition. I think as long as we do, you have a opportunity where, that person will be able to buy the bonds or the notes at a aggressive rate. So they'll be the winning bidder in essence.
Mm-hmm.
I love Councilman's idea. I actually got phone calls from residents today because Councilman led a great finance committee meeting yesterday. I think Tenafly is in a unique place. We're very fortunate that there are some people, one way to really support your town is to help fund it, and it's a win-win for everybody. So I love it when you say you've never heard of anyone doing it before, but there's no prohibition. That's when my ears perk up and say it sounds like something exactly that I'd like to propose to the council.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is we need to call and reach out tomorrow to bond council. Talk to Jason just to make sure that there is no issue. Because that's going to have to come from him. I'm just opening up the finances. Just give me 1 second here. I just wanted to show you what we have. I'm doing many times at the same time, so I can't remember exactly.
Sure, plus while Paul is kind of, researching, maybe I would suggest that this is something that we as a council should, speak amongst ourselves and decide whether it's something we would want to see. Because I understand, that the residents might be interested, or that, it might not be something that is prohibited, but maybe something that we might not, as a council, we might not want to see.
Right, but I think Councilman Mennon's right that this really deserves an entire separate conversation, and so the question is still on the floor. And Councilman Michaels, you need to weigh in on whether you agree with this general plan.
I never voted. I just want to say, I'm fine with what Councilman Grossman said, okay. And I'm fine.
Okay, Adam?
Yes, I'm supportive. I think it makes sense.
Okay. Susan, do you need any further, or Paul, do you need any further direction, or are you clear on what the council is asking for?
I think we're good. I think we know the dates now that we're going to put into the document. We're going to move forward, getting you the document. The only thing I just wanted the direction. Do you want me to do the forecast that I normally do for you guys 1 year out, based upon this data?
Yeah, I believe that would be best.
Just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay, so we're going to introduce April 2nd. We've got a hearing May 5th. We may or may not adopt on that day based on conditions on the ground in a month.
And in April 21st,
Correct, and we'll certainly advertise a motion and a hearing on the 5th.
Right, and April 21st, we're going to discuss spending.
Lizette and I do an approval process for all spending through the purchase orders when our departments process them. So we cannot scrutinize them as we do now.
Okay. All right, do we have any other questions for Paul from members of the council? I'll go down the list in case anyone's not loading properly. Julie, any questions?
No questions.
Dan? No? Lauren? Lauren?
No, I think if Paul's comfortable, Susan's comfortable, I'm fine.
Okay. Jeff, any other questions for Paul?
Just real quickly, Paul, you said that, or Susan said that there's a bond note in May, I think. I just want to make sure everyone's clear what the difference is between a bond and a bond note. If you can clarify if there is a difference.
Right, sure. So we have permanent debt, which is bonded, that we have a debt service payment schedule on, and it's set dollar values, principal, interest, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about bond anticipation notes. So typically what you do is you wind up doing these ordinances, you authorize debt, and we first go out and borrow notes, and they're annual notes, so they're renewed each year.
And you can go up to what, 3 times on those?
You can go up to 10 times on those. And what we typically do is we look at your debt service, how the existing debt is laid out. And when we have a natural drop in that existing debt service is typically when we go back into the market and we look at all the notes that we have outstanding and we roll them into permanent debt. So we're talking only about the annual notes that are coming due, and they're coming due. It's roughly $6 million coming due at the end of May. And typically what happens is that there'll be some bidding on, on who wants to purchase the notes. And we're always, of course, looking at the net interest cost. And whoever has the lowest net interest cost becomes the successor, and they purchase the note.
All right, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with the difference in terminology. Thank you.
Okay.
And Jeff, just so you know, we can roll the notes up to 10 years, but on the 3rd anniversary, we have to pay a principal payment.
Okay, that's what, I knew there was something on the 3rd year.
Vanilla, any further questions?
Thank you.
Any further questions for Paul?
No other questions from me.
Okay. Adam, any further questions for Paul?
That's perfect. Thank you again.
Bill McClure, any questions for Paul?
Probably could be. No, no questions.
Okay, I think, okay, we're done with Paul then, really, right? Okay, Paul, thank you very much for joining us and through these very challenging times. We appreciate your help and guidance.
Anytime, don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item to be considered, Susan's going to walk us through this bond council services.
The bond council, let me see.
Item B on the to be considered.
Oh, I have to go in there for,
There's no backup, Susan.
okay, so, my computer, I'm sorry, but my computer is not.
I'll give a synopsis and then you chime in. With regards to the bond council services, when, at the reorg, when the governing body adopts a resolution appointing the bond council, it was always with a firm contingent upon Jason Capizzi being the principal contact because he knows the entire borough history. Jason is no longer with Win Banta, he's out on his own. So with him leaving, he's taking the position with him. So the mayor and council have to adopt a new resolution appointing him as bond counsel. I'm just waiting for him to file the pay-to-play paperwork.
Okay, I can jump in now. So that's exactly right. And Jason has a history with the borough Tenafly when he was with, I think it was
Jack Kraft,
and then
yes.
Jack retired, and then Jason, he was mentored by Jack, and Jason then became our bond counsel, and because he has so much history, he knows all of our ordinances, And he's very, every time we call him with a question, he has the answer readily available. So we want to make sure he's our interim bond counsel, and especially with the forthcoming notes coming due, and possibly selling bonds in the future, maybe next year even, Jason would be the person that I would want to do our notes and our bonds.
So what do we need, the council's approval to move forward with this?
Well, council has two options. You could appoint them as bond counsel for the rest of 2020 and then appoint them again at the reorg, or appoint them as an interim and go out for RFQ after the summer.
Okay, so I'll go down the list of who called in first to get everyone opportunity to speak. Councilwoman O'Connor, would you like to weigh in on this?
No, I'm not going to add.
Okay, Councilman Park? Councilwoman Dayton?
Yes, Susan, is Jason out on his own, or is he joined a new firm? I'm sorry, I'm not clear on that.
He's out on
He's
his
going on
own.
his own.
Yes.
Are you concerned at all that he needs to back up with somebody else? I'm not concerned. But like right now is not the time to change bond counsel. We could go out next year for an RFQ, and Jason could also, be one of the individuals who sent in a proposal. But right now, I think it would be not good to even consider changing bond counsel. That's fine, but if something happens, Jason, are we comfortable that we have somebody doing our bonds? We could ask him that question, but I mean, we could go to different bond counsel. I mean, we're coming from Winnie Banta. We can always go back to them, or Woodard McPherson. Those are the two that he dealt with that were, part of the companies that he was with. But I will ask Jason that what would, God forbid, in the event, something happens to him, what happens? Who's his backup?
For a little bit of history, our bond counsel, Jack Kraft, was a sole practitioner, and as he was phasing into retirement, he recruited and mentored Jason. So the borough has, for most of its tenure, has had a sole practitioner bond counsel. It's only recent that we've had a firm, but even with the firm, Jason was the sole practitioner. He was the principal agent for that. No other members of Win Banta or Waters McPherson were involved with with Tenafly's bonds.
I understand that it's strange time out there, so I have to ask these questions.
Councilman Grossman?
That's a good question.
Jeff, you have a comment or question?
No, I think Lauren asked a great question, and we should go forward this year and see where we're at the end of the year, have a discussion.
Okay. Vanilla?
Yeah, I don't think, we have any objection to Jason as the bond counsel. I think, Lauren asked pretty much the right question, if not even if he's out for whatever, if he's out for even a couple of weeks on vacation or something like that, is there some backup? I think that was the gist of the question, and I'm fine given Susan's answers and just keeping these.
Okay. Councilman Michaels?
Again, great points. I'm okay. I'm supportive.
Okay, Susan, you have clear direction there. Lizette?
Yeah.
We're sticking with Jason for now. We'll confirm about having a backup, and we'll reassess it at the end of the year.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to move on to correspondence. There are 2 letters in correspondence. Does anyone have any questions or have comments about the letters? I'll go down from the top. I know this is monotonous, but I want to make sure everyone is heard. Julie?
No, I have no questions about correspondence.
Okay. Dan? No. Lauren? Jeff?
questions.
No, Jeff?
No questions. I think TVAC's doing a tremendous job under a lot of strain, and a lot of credit to them right now.
Agreed. Vanilla?
No questions.
Adam?
Same thing, great. It's great to hear the letters, and I'm appreciative of the residents for actually making the time to write them as well.
Okay, any questions about the resolutions? Okay, old business?
Just a question on resolution.
I'm about to go down the list. Go ahead, Vanilla.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
If you want to go down the list.
That's okay, but you jumped in first to save me, so go ahead.
Resolution 139 about the Greek Orthodox cathedral. I know it's June 19th. Are we fine with that?
Well, you bring up a good point. Their event is June 19th. I would think in anticipation of the world being in a better place, we move forward with this. If the governor's orders still stand that there's no gathering, our approval of this will be null and void.
And what happens is, the main thing is to get the raffle in the event. The church has to seek an amendment to change the date. They can do that. It's easier to seek an amendment than rush to last minute to get the license from Newark.
So I'll go down the list. Julie, any questions about the resolutions?
No.
Dan?
No.
Lauren?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the resolution that awards the bid for Hudson Avenue and Woodland Street
Yes.
for the paving. Number one, was this company the one that we hired 1 or 2 years ago? Because I felt like I'd like to reject the bid. That's one. But I don't think it was the same. And two, I thought that Hudson wasn't this year because we were still waiting on a piece of the grant.
Okay, with this company, they have worked for us. It's been a few years. The only reasons you could reject the bid is if the paperwork was incomplete, or if it was all the bids came over budget. And this is
I don't think it asked for subpar quality.
no,
They've already done it for us.
no. Under local public contracts law, it is only a disqualification of the paperwork, like if his business registration certificate was expired or something like that. There was a defect in the paperwork. But this is not the person, this is not the firm that you're referring to. And this, with Hudson as an NJDOT project, this is the first phase, and we were just awarded the second phase that it was recommended to be held off to 2021.
So that no work on Hudson will take place in 2020.
This portion, the first section on Hudson,
I'm sorry, there's a lot of background noise. Whoever's making noise, please stop. I can't hear.
Why don't we, hold on a
Say
second.
again, was that? Okay.
okay, this is, for the DOT project, it's Hudson from Piermont to County. It's only that portion.
Will that will be paved or will not be paved this year? I think residents want to know.
It will be paid. The other portion, the remainder of Hudson Avenue, will not.
So say it again, from County to Piermont?
From Piermont Road to County Road, that portion of Hudson Avenue will be paved. The remaining portion is being deferred as a 2021 project.
Can we put everybody on mute?
Let's put everyone on mute except for Lauren. There's background noise.
Okay.
So, except for Lauren. Go ahead, take your time. Might have to do that.
One facility near the senior facility over there, that will be paved.
Okay.
Hello?
All right, Lauren.
You're on, Lauren. Go ahead.
So I just want to reiterate to residents, the part that's near the senior facility on Hudson will be paved.
By Brightview, you mean?
Thank you, yes, that's the name.
Yes, because, yes, that's right off Piermont Road.
Yes.
That will be paved.
And then there's a question from some of the residents on Hudson, whether it will be a single line or a double line going from
county up to the nature center.
That's a good, I don't know if we have that answer tonight.
I do not have the bid specs with me.
Yeah,
I mean,
Bob,
it includes pavement striping.
yeah, hold on a second, is Bob Colbert on the line? Can you unmute Bob
No,
Colbert?
he's not on.
He's not on the line? Okay. Okay, we can get that question answered tomorrow, Lauren. That's,
Well, I don't, need it immediately, but the other thing I'd like to reiterate is to please put in some areas where pedestrians can walk on that area of Hudson that's in the future bid, because many families and school children use Hudson to get to mom's school.
we're talking about Hudson east of County Road.
That's right, Hudson up the hill basically to the
That's
nature
east
center.
of County,
So the nature
okay.
center's done, which is our future bid, which we need to write up now. So I'd like to ensure that when we write up the bid, we have pedestrian walkways on that road.
Okay, all right, that happens to not be part of the grants, but we can have that conversation in the next work session to talk about sidewalks or whatever we want to talk about over there.
Yes, that would have to be a separate project.
Yeah.
It can't be part of this bid because, next year's bid, because that was an NJDOT project, and that's only for road improvements. We can't include that in that project. It would be a standalone project.
Is that what happened with Piermont, that we couldn't get sidewalking or space on Piermont?
Correct.
Bike lanes and pedestrians?
Yes, when it is an NJDOT project, they have very specific parameters, and they have to approve the plans based on the parameters of the grant. So we can't deviate from that and try to obtain grant money to help offset that. That would have to be a completely separate standalone project that would have to take place after the DOT project is done and the funds have been returned to the borough.
It's so strange, because New Jersey DOT really is looking to make bike and walk lanes everywhere. You would think they'd encourage it. But can we put this on the next agenda in which it's appropriate?
Sure, of course. Any other questions on any other resolutions, Lauren? No.
No, thank you.
Jeff, is he muted? Is Jeff muted?
Yeah, let me unmute all.
Okay. Councilman Grossman, any questions on the resolutions?
I'm used to being muted around here. No.
I have no comments about that. Okay. Councilman Ryan, any comments?
Yes, I found it, I mean, I don't know if anybody else saw this, but the company that we gave the bid to is recommending the bid be awarded to another company who actually came in at $100,000 or whatever higher. And I know this sometimes happens, but it's just very interesting. We should note that.
I'm not, what does he mean?
So the company that we did give the bid to, For Cleanup Inc., they're recommending that the bid be awarded to J.A. Alexander. J.A. Alexander also bid for this project, and they came in much, much higher.
Where are you seeing that, Benoit?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading the resolution, number 142.
Oh,
And if you actually look at the...
No, that's a typographical error. Everything is for cleanup.
I'm sorry?
Everything is for cleanup, nothing for J.A. Alexander. J.A. Alexander was the previous contractor for a DOT project.
Oh, okay, so that's a typo. I'm sorry.
Typo, yeah.
Oh, good catch. Okay.
So do we need to take this out then,
No,
and not vote on it?
no, it's.
No. No, they'll just amend that.
Okay.
You do the.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Michaels, any questions about the resolutions?
Just a question on the 20-146. It's the parking leases. I assume this is the Wells Fargo. Is that they raise prices?
Susan? It,
20-146. It says there's a move of $5,000 from the contingency account to parking lot leases.
Yeah, that says a transfer.
So I found out that Wells Fargo, they have not put through any of, we haven't paid them in a couple of years, and now we're going to be getting an invoice to pay parking leases, and we're luckily able to start back when leases have occurred in 2019. Spoke to the auditors about it, and we decided that the best place to take it from with some contingency. So those are the things that we're going to be invoiced for in the near future. And since I can't do any more transfers after this month for last year for reserves, this is why this is in there now.
Okay. And then we have an action, one of our kind of summer sessions is looking, because we know CSX, there's potential changes to the way they're dealing with the parking spots for us. We're adding to our list of summer fun to think about our parking situation. We could please do that.
Sure, of course, and we're already in conversations with CSX, and their rates are not, their lease negotiations, anything that winds up happening will not take effect till January of 2021, just so everyone's
I
clear.
want to make sure that we anticipate that, yeah, absolutely.
Correct. Okay.
In the budget, we anticipated for CSX staying the same, and we also anticipated for Wells Fargo's lease as well in 2020. It's already in there.
Okay, moving on so that we're done with the resolutions. Old business, 2020 Bergen County Open Space Grant.
Yes, at the second to last budget meeting, I was asked to find out if taking out the pool at the old Tenafly Swim Club and filling it with rock and gravel would be a candidate for the Bergen County Open Space Trust Fund. From what our grant writer at Mazer, Kelsey Howard, told me is, first of all, the county extended their deadlines, that the letter of intent now was moved to be due on May 18th and the application's due June 29th. And according to Adam Strobel, that is not a viable application because they consider the pool, taking out the pool and fill more of a remediation. If there was a project that included developing the area and that was one section, they would only fund the development of the area. So it has to be an overall open space project, and taking out a pool and filling it with rocks is not, it'd be disqualified, it'd be rejected. So the governing body has to determine what project they would like to submit the letter of intent for by to meet the May 18th deadline. I know with Councilman Michaels at the Downtown Redevelopment Committee, there was discussion on doing some type of beautification with Hyler Park. That would be a contender.
That's great.
But I would need more details on what is being looked for in order to have Kelsey draft a letter of intent.
So
I'll have to partner with you on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
okay, we're ready to, have a motion to adjourn the work session, and then we'll start the public meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Okay, we're going to go right into the regular public meeting. I'm going to read the Open Public Meetings Act. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center, and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of all revised or additional meetings notices are sent via fax to the Record, the Suburbanite, and the Northern Valley Press, and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. Salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, was that, Omar, only because of ease of hearing, should we have Lizette do the roll call, or do you want to do the roll call from that? Go ahead, Omar, do the roll call. I don't think he can hear.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Okay, she's here. Councilmember Grossman?
Here.
Present.
Councilmember Menon?
Here.
Councilmember Michaels?
Present.
Councilmember O'Connor?
Here.
Councilmember Park?
Here.
Mayor Zinna.
Here. Any revisions to the agenda? Bill? Bill?
There are no revisions to the agenda.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go to public comment. So,
I had a resident that did sign up, but she's no longer on.
so is everything unmuted?
Yes.
Everyone's unmuted here? Okay, so is there, in case our technology is not counting you, is there any member of the public there that would like to speak? Please speak up now. Okay, being no members of the public making any comments, we're going to, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Got a second?
Second.
So shall we read the roll?
Yes.
Okay, so Lizette's going to read the roll, so we have everyone answer. Go ahead, Lizette.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Menon?
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Connor?
O'Connor, yes.
Councilmember Park?
Here. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next we'll go to committee reports. Councilwoman O'Connor, do you have any committee reports?
Committee reports already?
Already?
Hello?
How about the committee reports?
I have
What
a
did she
few of
say?
them. So I was part of the health committee meeting, and we spoke at length about the town's response to COVID-19. The mayor was also on the call and updated everyone. I'm not sure if the mayor wants to talk more about this. I'm imagining his mayor's remarks, but that basically, of course, dominated the meeting. And then I'd like to talk about the Census Committee. So for that one, the self-response phase, that's where you've all been getting things in the mail, that's been extended to August 14th. Questionnaire assistance, which is where places were set up to help people respond online, for those people that have challenges responding online. Those were also postponed, from April 13th to August 14th. And then in addition to these things called non-response follow-ups, they were also changed, and that window had been May 28th to August 14th. I sent the mayor some information that's going to be going on our town website, and among the info it says that people should be including everyone that's living in their house, even if it's a person, who's not a family member. If they live in the house, they should report that person on the census. But I do have to say that overall, I am quite concerned about undercounting, because all of the assistance that I had, lined up and I'm worried that, for our elderly population and other people who have English language, that English might be their second language, we were going to be assisting them in completing the census online. And, now that really can't happen. And the December 31st is the deadline for the state to deliver its population to the federal government. So while some of our things are extended, it is a concern. So like I say, the mayor's going to put some information on the website about phone assistance and things like that, and where people can go to the federal site, that's the census.gov. However, it is concerning because our population counting is what determines our representation in Washington as well as our funding. So I do want to say those things. So.
I think what you're saying is extremely important, and so we're going to have to, offline, yourself, Dan, myself, and Lizette, talk about and plan for how we communicate this to the borough, how we want to put it on the website, and how we promote it. So you're absolutely correct. I'm going to interrupt for a second because we had a member of the public who sent in an email question. Somehow they weren't able to call in. And the question is from Christine Everon at 39 Leroy Street. Quote, should please consider a sprinkler system and water features for the dog park for the open space fund application. So that is Christine Everon's comment. Okay. Julie, do you have any other committee reports?
No, those are my two committees.
Okay. Dan, any committee reports?
No.
None. Ryan, committee reports?
Yes, I have two. I'm going to start with the Nature Center. The Nature Center boards met by teleconference, and it was a very tense meeting. You know, the Nature Center essentially is funded by its programming, its school programming throughout the year, which is completely at nil right now. The building is closed. Our Nature Center schools are still open, but all educational program and basically all of their revenue is at offset. They're doing a campaign, of course, for, fundraising from our residents, but it's barely trickling in. And so they're looking at layoffs. They wanted to know if Tenafly Council had any interest in helping in this process. They currently have money from the first quarter that they're using to pay right now their full-time employees, which need to take care of the lands and the animals full-time. We've moved somebody into the Denham house so that they can be on the property and taking care of animals if, God forbid, someone can't make it in from another place. But at least we know our creatures are well taken care of and stocked. They have a food supply that should last a couple months, but after that, they don't have it. And, some of these animals eat, like frozen mice and things that we're not sure right now about supply and ordering, of course. So anyway, I'm throwing it out to the council for discussion about whether we want to give any financial assistance over to the Nature Center, or even if we can, if we're allowed to go
Lauren, are you still there, Lauren?
I'm here.
Okay. One of the things I would recommend is that the Nature Center prepare for you some sort of, just a spreadsheet of what kind of assistance they're looking for in terms of dollars and how they would use it, and maybe it's too soon for that because they don't know what the situation they're in. But if they could put together something very simple so that the council can understand the magnitude of what kind of help they need, and then I think we can all talk it through and figure out what is the best course here.
That's fine. I'll relay that to our Nature Center Director, Deborah. That's fine.
Also, that's not I'm not making any commitment from the council that anyone's writing a check. I'm just asking for data so that we can understand the level of that problem.
And she understands that. Okay. I think the Nature Center board is doing all of the right things and trying to be incredibly conservative about their projections right now.
Of course. Okay.
And then I have a second one.
May I also the Nature Center just a quick question, Lauren. Along with that request for how much they would need, can we know what their expenses will be if some of the building is closed down, if there are things that are closed down? What are their expenses that would require that? So maybe you could just ask for both sides.
Right now, I believe the biggest expense, of course, is their employees. There's a handful of full-time employees, and then there's about 10 part-time. They're looking right now to eliminate some of the part-time positions, unfortunately, which is a shame because they took a very long time to get the right people for all of their programming and all of our town. So, again, they were kind of hoping not to have to make that decision. But they're, of course, to do so open and to stay, away from the red. So, they're reaching out to us.
No, I get it. I was just saying if we can get both instead of just the one side is I was asking.
Sure, I'll get as much information as I can.
Okay.
And then my second committee report, okay.
Go ahead, Ron.
Oh, I didn't know if you were going to say something. If anyone else, someone started speaking.
Floor is all yours.
Okay. All right, the second one is Pride Day, which is supposed to happen in June. Pride Day is currently still pushing forward. They wanted to know if that was the case, and I said I have no idea.
So what date in June typically? Is this June 7th?
June 5th or 6th,
June 5th?
first weekend.
I would say go ahead and schedule it with the same.
They need to reach out to to Valerie at the Media and Events Committee. She was waiting to hear from them.
Okay, so have them reach out to Valerie, Media and Events Committee, and schedule it, and let's get it on the books, and if it has to be canceled because of events, then so be it. But let's at least get it, let's get it teed up.
Oh, I have to say, I'm not sure it's prudent to have us have 200, 300 people gathering in our town because we can keep it. Like this year, want to consider doing it in the fall. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, so the question becomes, is if the question is, do they want to schedule it, they can schedule it for June, rather than it may be canceled, because we don't know what the world is going to be like in what is 8 weeks from now. April, May, that's 9 weeks from now. If they're more comfortable scheduling it for later in the year, okay, then they should suggest what dates they'd like to schedule it for.
Okay.
And they will need to take into account other area-wide events that were supposed to be held in March and April are already pushed off to September. So when they're looking at the calendar, they have to check whatever has been, the Bergen County St. Patrick's Day Parade, what other events have already selected a date in September.
Okay. And I'm going to assume that the welcoming committee firehouse tour on May 15th is canceled.
Roxana hasn't conveyed anything to me. Nothing has been sent, no invitations have been sent out. I would recommend holding off until mid-April before making a decision one way or another, just to see where we're at.
I mean, I'm not comfortable congregating anybody right now, so I'd be, comfortable taking that off as well. Okay, that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Grossman, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, trying to be optimistic along with what Lauren was just saying. The Tenafly Presents Committee has been super active, that in case, and everybody realizes it may not happen, it may only happen for August, but we want to have a summer concert soon if we're back to that point, and groups are being lined up. Money has been trickling in for this. We're actually at, I think, 11,000 already donated. Last year, the total donations were about double that, so that's not bad considering where we're at. One of the things, another time I'll talk to Bill about how best to have agreements with these bands that we may have to do some last minute canceling, but we want to try and plan for life returning to somewhat normal. We're lining up some very interesting and diversified groups. If it goes forward, phenomenal, and I thank the committee for all their hard work reaching out to groups. If it doesn't go forward, that's unfortunate, but there are far worse things in the world, so we're ready for all eventualities. We hope to bring music to Tenafly this summer.
Well, Jeff, I think that's fabulous. Looking forward to them. And it is nice to see the checks coming in, even in the environment we're in.
I meant to ask you, Mary, don't mean to interrupt, if you can reach out, if you haven't done so, to the Clinton Inn for a rain bin.
Yes, I will. I've been speaking to the Clinton Inn on renting rooms for coronavirus issues, but I haven't talked to them about that topic, and I will. And I think you're 100% right about having a conversation with the borough attorney to make sure, given the current environment, the borough doesn't suffer any financial penalties if they have to cancel last minute.
Right. That's my only report for tonight.
Okay. Councilman Mullen, anything to report?
No, nothing for tonight.
Okay. Councilman,
I'm sorry, Councilman, do you have an update on the Finance Committee last night?
Well, I mean, you know, to the extent, I mean, if you like, you can update them, but otherwise, you know, I'll just say that we had a 1-hour meeting, and there was a lot of interesting discussion over, you know, potential, you know, savings and revenues, you know, questions that were brought up, things that we want to, you know, having people consider ways to improve things in the town. I mean, you know, I don't know if we're ready to kind of discuss the kinds of things that we mentioned yesterday, but you know, if you feel that it is worthwhile discussing, I'm happy to that you got.
No, you know this again. It's still building, but I do obviously want to appreciate the team that's participating. I think, as you said, they identified a set of actions that they're going to work on intra meetings. So we're going to see progress there.
Right. I mean, it's in a nascent stage, so at the moment, you know, I don't think. You know, until something formalizes on plans, I don't know if it's necessary to discuss too much about it.
anything else, Boyd?
No, that was it.
Councilman Nichols?
Yeah, so there have been two committees since we last spoke. So the first one, we had a downtown committee meeting last week. Again, something I'm really impressed with the team on, just such passion that they have, great attendance. They actually, so they're to the point where they already have ideas and they've met as sub-teams, and we spent more than an hour reviewing the different ideas that they've put together and the actions they've already taken. So for instance, they've already put together a first draft of a survey that they want to send out. They want to send it out. As Lizette mentioned, they've already come up with specific areas where they can improve some immediate improvements and some work around long-term development as well. So really kudos to that team for making such progress. There was some concern I did share with them during the budgeting process. You know, and it's my responsibility to get that central plan, which they all agreed was the first step. Obviously, they were disappointed, but we're optimistic that the council can find the funds throughout the course of the year to make sure all the hard work that they're doing is realized. So I believe that's possible. I had great meetings and very much appreciate Councilman Gross and I spoke with others that there is a desire to continue to enhance the downtown, and there are ways that I'll work with my fellow council members to make that happen. So just an amazing job that the downtown committee is doing, and already seeing progress on the things that they're putting together.
Okay. Anything else, Adam?
Yep, there was another meeting we had last night. Thanks to Christine for leading the Chamber of Commerce. It was certainly a more challenging meeting. Different atmosphere, a number of businesses shared just what's really happening with the pandemic, stores having to close down. You know, this is our people's livelihoods. So it was you know, a challenging conversation. There were some specific asks that they had that I'll reach out to both Lizette and the mayor on a couple items. One thing that I did want to bring up, a number of people, I just got a text from another resident, Andrew Till. A lot of people are asking, they care about the downtown, what can they do to help? Christine brought up another good point on, you know, could we help our hospital workers and get them food? We've heard stories that they're not getting meals or working long shifts. Is there a way that we could help out, you know, everybody? So residents can donate. They want to donate their money. We could give that to local restaurants where they could produce food, and then we could donate that to people in need, whether it be residents that need it or specifically a good point on how we donate to the hospital staff. So I'd love to work with you, Mr. Mayor, possibly. I know you know people at the hospital. Is there a way that we could, everybody wins? We want the town, this town cares, we want to donate, and we get it to the right folks, and we help out our local restaurants.
Absolutely, I'm going to talk about that more, and we can engage in that during my mayor's remarks. So we absolutely want to do that, and we're already starting to make some moves in that direction. So yes.
So I'd love to work with you on that, and again, come back to this committee next time and show them that we're making those connections between the folks that want to donate, the restaurants that need the business, and then the people that need it most.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anything else? Adam, you're good? Adam, with your reports? Okay.
That's good, thank you.
Okay, next we're going to move into our public hearing. You're going to read the confirmation of the publication? Parking time? Question, hold on.
Well, side question. I forgot to mention, well, the planning board did not meet. Currently, the hearings on Bottle King are scheduled to continue, and we're hoping to be able to do it for a similar meeting to this, at worst-case basis, on April 22nd. So I just want to keep people informed of when those potential hearings on the continued application of Bottle King will happen.
Are they expecting to do it live in person or through, conference calling like this?
I think the initial thought is conference call. There's some complications how to get exhibits up and visible for everybody, especially the public, but hopefully by April 22nd, that will be worked out. Otherwise, it'll get pushed down the road a little bit, but we really do want to continue with that hearing.
Just to add to that, I gave to the planning board secretary, Valerie, the Division of Local Government Services recommendations on these types of remote meetings, and I gave her the director's email, Melanie Walter, so that way the planning board attorney, Jeff Zen, can work out the logistics on having a meeting, especially one with this type of topic. So I provided Valerie with the resources.
Okay, all right, perfect. So the next item on the agenda is the ordinance 2-20-03. Orland, would you like to read that into the...
Sure.
Okay.
Ordinance number 20-03, ordinance to amend Chapter 7 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly entitled Traffic.
Okay, now we're going to open the floor for public comment. Is everything unmuted, Lizette? Are there any members of the public who would like to make a public comment regarding ordinance 20-03, parking time limited on certain streets? Okay, there's no members of the public. Councilwoman O'Connor, would you like to make the motion on this one, please?
To make the motion, I don't know the words to do that.
Okay.
One more.
You don't have that in front of you right now?
Jeff has a raised hand.
Jeff has a raised hand. Jeff, would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, before I do, I just want to explain for anyone who will be watching this that this is intended to alleviate some of the parking issues at the dog park. We don't want residents really using the junior parking lot, which is a moot point right now, but won't be next year. So that it will provide some limited time parking in front of the swim club for those who will be utilizing the dog park. We encourage them to use those spots instead of taking spots away from students.
If you don't mind, I jump back into it. Do I just read the ordinance? Is that how I do it? Or just do I make a motion?
adopt on second reading.
Okay. And, I'd like to present this
Adopt on second reading.
How about this? A motion, please, to move and adopt on second and final reading ordinance 20-03, and the notice of same shall be published according to law.
Okay.
So go ahead and move that.
There's a motion.
Okay, second motion, yes, I move the second motion, and ordinance number 2003, an ordinance to amend chapter 7 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly entitled Traffic.
Can I have a second, please? Second. Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Menon?
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Okay. All right, moving on. New business. I'll go down the list to see if anyone has, everything is unmuted.
Yes.
Okay, Councilman O'Connor, new business?
No, just as a little follow-up is that people can expect that we'll have just some more information on the census that they might be able to find.
Okay, very good. Councilman Park?
No, nothing to add.
Councilwoman Dayton?
Yes, I'd like to discuss some of the items that I had sent, some suggestions on how council and our residents can help out, of course, in this world. I know we're asking and tasking our Chamber of Commerce to make lists of restaurants, but I feel like we, as the 6 members of the council, should be doing some of this work as well. I think we should be reaching out to our supermarkets, to our CVS, to our Tenafly Gourmet, asking them for curbside pickups and deliveries. I think we should be encouraging, any shops and stores that aren't food-based to help, do an online website with curbside delivery or pickup. And, I think that it would behoove us all to get involved in this process on more of the ground level. I know Mark has been doing an enormous job and a wonderful job guiding our town through this. But I think we can help lift them up. So I'd like to know if there's any interest in, any of the items, such as, talking to the restaurants or compiling lists, if anyone's interested.
I think, Lauren, that's all excellent idea. My recommendation would be to have those conversations with council members directly, and then coordinate and add to whatever the chamber is doing, so that we're not repeating ourselves, because I don't know, I talk to Christine all the time, but I don't know the details of all the communication that's going on, and you're raising 100% valid points. I think put a team together of council members who want to do it, and let's go for it.
Okay, and then I have a second item. Mark and I have actually been working a little bit on the creation of possible masks for our first responders and our hospital. We have both spoken, I'm not going to look at both businesses, but I have two businesses within us, Unity Stone Street, which is a stone face, and House of Color, which are fabric. And they are trying to partner to create masks. We're trying to get the requirements from the local hospitals and the doctors of what these masks need to be to actually be effective. So if anyone's interested in working with me on that issue, or that, creative space, if anyone has to say also, let me know.
Okay. Jeff, any business?
Not at this time, so.
Okay. Any business?
No, nothing, at the moment.
Any business?
That's great.
Okay. I'm going to go into mayor's remarks at this point, so where should I start? We have essentially 8 people confirmed still with coronavirus that fortunately has not gone up from yesterday. The bad news is that there is one fatality that happened overnight that we learned late this afternoon. So hopefully those numbers won't tick up more, but I do feel that we should expect more confirmed cases in Tenafly in the days ahead, and I'll communicate that to the public as it develops. A couple of things that we're working on the positive side for the seniors. Michelle Hodge from the Senior Center and her staff are calling between 500 and 600 seniors on a regular basis every day, so they don't get 500 a day, but they start their list, they call everyone, and they just keep growing, and they're asking if anyone needs groceries, medical issues to help them talk to a doctor, or they just want to have a conversation. We've had a couple of other residents contacted me, single parents with children, a couple, they're ill, they don't want to leave their house, and they need food delivered. So we've actually sent that information to Michelle, and so she's expanded her service to include people other than seniors if they're in need of help. So it's kind of like an emergency social services net we have going on to help some residents. So that's happening, and that's a positive thing. We have another resident that has volunteered to keep track of and look for doctors and nurses and other medical professionals to help backfill in the hospital if it comes to that, and if they need more medical people. I've had conversations with the people who operate Angela Field Club, who have very generously said that if it comes to it, they will make their facility available to Angela Hospital, as they did, it turns out, during the 1918 pandemic. So they'll do that thing and they're willing to do it again now. We have our TVAC crew. We have several different people. Actually, we have a resident plus TVAC, and our deputy area chief is out there looking for personal protection equipment constantly. Every day we talk about it at our 10:30 emergency meeting. We're looking for donations from residents, which we have received donations of masks and thermometers. So keep the donations coming in, and we're constantly building our stockpile, if you will, of personal protection equipment. Things are very backloaded, and we're doing the best we can. Just so everyone knows how serious it is, about 3 days ago, the ambulance call was down to only 30 masks, and we now have a system where individuals are reusing the same masks, and they're doing it by keeping track of the date that they wear a mask, and then they know that this virus dies after X amount of dates, and then they can use the mask again after that date. So that's how short we are on masks that we're doing that. Our building department is issuing building permits, a process where people are mailing their FedEx and the blueprints to us, FedExing their permit money, and then we're emailing a copy of the permit back to wherever the construction company is, so they can continue on construction. The DPW is issuing permits for tree removal when it's connected to construction, so that's working in tandem. The DPW is also continuing with the local recycling program. Like the rest of the departments in the borough, everyone is working at half staff every other week, and that will continue for the foreseeable future. Bob Colbert is putting together a plan for potentially picking up some large bulk items that would typically go to the recycling center, but we're planning that one day at a time. One of the things I want to talk about is social distancing, and I hope members of the community are going to see this move, because they've got plenty of time at home, because they should not be in the parks and they shouldn't be in the playgrounds, but we still have kids in playgrounds and on some of the playground equipment. I know it's happening in the elementary school playgrounds, and it's frankly very selfish and irresponsible of the parents who allow their kids to do that. I know that people are calling the police to get out there to chase the kids away, but the reality is that we don't really want this virus lives on playgrounds. a small percentage of the population is not showing this issue of respect, and we need to do more of it. So those are my comments, and look, we're organizing information, whether it's for businesses, in terms of what's going to happen on the opposite side when we come out of this, how they get loans, how they get grants for the federal government. We've got residents who are starting to step up, who have the means to help our local businesses out, and we're going to be very aggressively pursuing any ideas and any packages to help our local businesses. And those are really, through this thing, it's just going to take work and energy, but we're going to make it happen. And those are my mayor's remarks for tonight. And I think if I can get a motion to adjourn, we can move on.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you.
You guys are really nice seeing your face, and making me happy tonight.
Well, you have this is right?